Hey everybody, we have another episode here on the OWWL Podcast. We are now streaming on LinkedIn Live under my account, Jason R. Hill, as well as on all the OWWL platforms, OWWL app on Facebook, of course, and our community group. And every single week, we are featuring new experts that are joining the OWWL platform. And we had a big announcement this week. We launched the chat forum. It is going to be a game changer. The reason why I know why is people know me as a super connector down here in South Florida. And every single week I get text messages and emails. Jason, can you connect me with this person? And I always have to do intro emails. And then lots of times the people don't end up connecting. You know, the email gets lost. It goes to spam. Or someone sends a calendar link and then somebody gets COVID. The meeting gets canceled. But with OWWL, that just can't happen. People could connect instantly over one-on-one audio calls. And you can literally list who you want to connect with in the new chat forum. So I'm pretty pumped up. Danielle, what are your thoughts about the new chat forum before we get into our guest today?
I think it's going to be amazing. I mean, it's taking like the Facebook groups idea to the next level where people ask for, I've gotten jobs, so many jobs just from like random, not that I'm big on Facebook, but like the people with more money are on Facebook and LinkedIn. And so like when I am looking for a job, I'll go into a group and say, hey, does anybody need blah, 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 or who can recommend this? And I've gotten jobs that way. So I think
I'm assuming it's very big for musicians because musicians, like, you need a certain part.
Yeah, like right?
And
people,
what
private
what
holiday
party.
What
speaker should I buy?
Yeah.
I know for our podcast here, like I'm consistently like asking people for guidance on lighting, on cameras. And then it gets frustrating because I'm like, I want the answer today.
Right.
I want to send a DM and then and that person I feel bad for. They're like, oh, do I want to take a meeting? Right. A lot of people go through that and they're just being nice. Like, okay, you can pick my brain for free. And then lots of times it's like 3 weeks later where you're like, I just want to hit to Amazon or go to the music store and buy something. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming in your world, it's like our world in podcasting. It's like comes up all the time, right?
Definitely. So it's going to be a really useful tool. And the cool thing about it too is that we will be tracking who's making these intros. So say I was looking for equipment and then Jason recommended that I talk to another person on the platform. Jason would actually get points for that introduction. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. So you'll be able to see who's like made a lot of introductions and who's the master networker. And
one day we're gonna, of course, give people rewards. So one day you get like OWWL swag, t-shirts, hoodies, amount of introductions, because there's no accountability on Facebook or anywhere for that matter. People jump onto Zoom, they may act inappropriate, and they're on to the next networking meeting or the next introduction. Mm-hmm. And I always get frustrated. I introduce so many people. I'm like, did they connect? What happened? Right. And I can't tell. But with OWWL, you can just click their reviews and be like, oh, look, those two spoke, and you can see what they say. So we are holding a lot of people accountable for the first time. So I'm extremely excited about this job form. I think it's going to take OWWL to the next level. But let's get into our podcast today. Every week we get to feature such amazing people in the studio. Today we have Brielle Wohlenhaus. I think I might have got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right.
Not so easy to pronounce.
And we met through a networking event, and you were on the Interactive OWWL Podcast. So our audience might have seen you already. We have posted a little bit about yourself on some of those clips, and you're a social media expert. So I'm excited to really dive in because OWWL is a tool for social media folks like yourself, right? Where you don't know what to do with all the incoming messages. You get a lot, right? Your profile on LinkedIn, how many connections do you have right now?
Well, I know it's 500 plus. I don't know how many connections.
Well, I saw that you had over 16,000 followers, which I was impressed. So yeah.
I do like the quality over quantity. I look at the followers, but I'm like, engaging with. I do try and engage with as many people as I can through the DMs. But you're right, it gets lost sometimes.
So tell us a little bit about where your future is going. Right, a lot of our audience doesn't know your background. So let's start with where you are currently and where you see yourself going in the future in business.
Yeah. So for the past 5.5 years, I have been in college, which has been great, but I'm certainly excited to be graduating actually in a week and a half now, which is going to be a huge accomplishment for my life. And I've done a lot of things, which I feel like as a college student is great. I've worked in real estate. I've worked in legal services. I've kind of been all over and obtained new knowledge there and gained new experience, which has been great. But most of my experience has been in marketing and sales and social media. And I remember 2 years ago, I actually moved from the Midwest to Florida. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hop off social media and really just focus on LinkedIn. And people, especially in my generation, they think like, oh, this is just a job seeking platform, but it's so much more than that. I mean, I have gotten so many amazing opportunities through LinkedIn alone. And then about 6 months after I made my profile on LinkedIn, I started posting content, and that really took off. And I've cultivated amazing relationships and met people like you guys and gone to events. And so it's just been wonderful to gain experience through there, start becoming a content creator, and then also doing a lot of freelance work. So that's been a great little side business over the past couple of years, as I've worked for other people doing different marketing and social media services. So that's where I'm at as of right now.
I'm curious, how did you decide to go on LinkedIn? Like, what gave you that idea to not be the one of your generation that's on TikTok, Yeah, where did you get that idea from?
I just saw how certain social media platforms, especially I would say TikTok, I just feel like I was never on TikTok or
Yeah.
Facebook. I've never downloaded them, but I was on Instagram, and I found myself just mindlessly scrolling. And I was like, you know what? If you're not going to create a passion page or something for your business or like do something beneficial, I feel like you're simply wasting time. And I found myself during the peak of COVID wasting time. And I was like, I am so ultra focused and serious on my future that's where I really thought, there could be some great opportunity on LinkedIn, and I wanted to focus on there.
Now, what does your generation think of you? Right? Because often they're like, you're on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're in school right now. That's to get a job. Like, you
Right.
hear that, or like they go, boring.
Even my
Right? Like, I don't want to read that
generation
content. So,
now
like,
yeah.
how do you handle those responses that come in? Because I'm sure you get a lot of them.
I mean, it's been some of both. Sometimes I'm just feel like, hey, like, don't knock it till you try it. Or I mean, I feel like the proof is in the pudding. Like, if I'm telling you, hey, this has really worked, I'm doing well, of course you have to put in, hard work and certain things to get there. But I mean, I just, again, going back to the mindless scrolling, it's like, would you rather spend your time just consuming, or creating? And I choose to create and do stuff to build my future. And then ironically, some of these same people say like, oh, I mean, I've told people about what I do, and they're like, oh, you're lucky. I wish I could do that. And I'm like, why can't you? Everybody has if you have a cell phone, you could do this stuff and then, branch off in extraordinary ways. So I just feel like, every time I get a response like that, it's really like, hey, I'm just trying to help you. All I can do is at least vocalize it. But at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't want to put in the work to, reap those certain things, then that's on them.
Tell our audience a little bit about the content that you put out there. What do you focus on specifically?
So it started, like, you'll see my headline is a voice for my generation. And that's what I strive to be, is a light in this generation that I feel like we need. And then it kind of evolved and I noticed people from all generations really benefit from my content. And so it's evolved in helping everyone from all generations best collaborate and communicate. And I think that's where my strong suit really lies right now. And so I post content with strategies and systems of how we can best do that, because whether it's in your personal or professional life, you're going to need that. You're going to need the communication skills to get along with people. There's going to be people you don't like. What do you do? You can't just stonewall people. You can't just have unhealthy conversations. You have to have the right skill sets to do certain things.
Why do you have so much passion behind this subject? Often people would just say, well, whatever, on a dating app, next, right? They'll go someone, right? And when it comes to communication and building relationships with folks under 30, right, it's a lost art. You'll hear a lot of people over 30 say, you're like, when my generation was in sales, like, we went and we networked at events, we met people, we grabbed a coffee. And I think that's how we met. We met at an event that Cindy Metzer was putting on called LinkedIn Local. And you jumped into our booth, and we are now sitting here today. We're collaborating, right? And a lot of your generation is like, no, you don't need a network. Like, you don't need to be in sales. You could just post stuff and market. But I'm assuming there's something that's driving you to do this, right? You're saying, no, there's an issue going on potentially. And I'm just, making things up right now. But like, what is that passion behind this mission?
I think there's a lot of different issues. I've just seen, especially over the past couple of years, it's like kids my age. I noticed it when I would try and make friends too. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, it's very hard to find friends who think like me, who act like me because of these same issues. And that's where the passion started to ignite. Like, wow, I want to be the change that I wish to see in this world. So if somebody else isn't going to do what I want to do, I mean, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I have been. And to get messages from parents like, Brielle, I need your help, and like, thank you so much for your content, like that makes me feel good, like good that I can put stuff out there for free that's helping people.
Can you give us a real example when you say put it, that person called you? Because I really want our audience to understand what that parent is going through. I'm a father of a 9 and 7-year-old. And I struggle like every other parent. We're just winging stuff half the time. And we're like, we think we're doing things right. But you could run into situations where a child is addicted to the iPad, the iPhone, and texting and messaging. And then the parent obviously sees like, well, they're going to have to get a job one day. They're going to have to communicate. They're going to have to collaborate. And I'm sure like those calls are coming in and they're asking like, what would you advise? Right. So tell us some real stories, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, and of course, it really depends on the specific situation. Okay, what is your kid struggling with? What have you tried as a parent? What's working? What's not? I would say the biggest thing is that's creating kids who don't have those communication skills is, you might have heard of like helicopter parenting. It's the overly protective, like, don't do this, don't do that, or kids have to take responsibility for their own actions, and if they fall, it's like, you know what, you're gonna get up, you're gonna be okay. But certain things, I would say, um you know it really just depends on the situation. I feel like, to be honest, that's a tough question to ask, but I've gotten messages like, hey, my kid is struggling with addiction. And
Yeah.
I would say, you know what, for me, if a kid is struggling with addiction, because I'm not perfect, I've had things that I've struggled with too in the past, but my faith has been something big for me personally that's really put me on a steady path. And health, putting my health first, I'd say, is the biggest thing you can show to your kids as a parent. Like, hey, let's go for a walk together, let's go to the gym together, let's go swimming. And I feel like that is the best escape.
Get them off the couch. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think too often people, it's like it's easier to hand an iPhone or an iPad to a young child.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it turns, from that scenario to like at the dinner table, then in the car.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, they're 18 years old and they're going to college. And then the professors are like, come on, like this is class. You can't have your iPhone in the back
Right.
of the class. And my other co-host and my other show is Kevin Cox, who teaches at FAU. And he speaks about it all the time. It's like, it's just the addiction to cell phones. And, it's interesting. We actually put OWL in the classroom last summer and we did a test, well, we did one test that failed. We said, use OWL. None of them did when we were in beta and give us ideas on how to grow. And we found out real quickly, people don't call people, especially when they're 18 to 22 years old. So real quick, we're like, okay, they're not going to call people. That's like asking a student, with no grade, don't worry about it. Go up and do a public presentation, but we're not going to pay you any money. And they're going to be like, absolutely not. 100 out of 100 will say no, pretty much. So with OWL, it was the same result, even though, they could have made the decision to make OWL, the best app out there, because there's not many opportunities to, give feedback to a founder of a platform and impact millions of people. And what we found is that when we put it in the classroom, when we said it's part of your grade, you're going to have to call 3 different entrepreneurs. It was an entrepreneurship class, so they had to look for specific entrepreneurs, call them and get feedback, about specific topics. It came out phenomenal. The kids absolutely loved it. There was boundaries. The professors like, this is great. They're not just faking the calls, because they would fake calling an uncle or grandparent at times or a friend, and they didn't always speak to the right entrepreneurs. And we found is like OWL can make a dent, in the next generation as well, because it's very simple. There's a lack of communication skills, right? And I see this all the time because I've done 30, 40 internships over the last 20 years in business, specifically more in the financial service industry, and lately for OWL. And I just see like, if I'm your boss, an email can't read like a text. It should say, "Dear Mr. Hill," right? It shouldn't say, "See you soon" with a U, right?
Yeah.
And then showing up, and just not having the right outfit. But it all starts with communication skills. I'm sure you agree,
Yes,
which
it
is
does.
why you're going a different direction on LinkedIn, which is known as the most professional platform out there, because people really care about the headshot they put out, the bio. A lot of people look at your profile and they'll go next if it doesn't look
Your
professional.
business card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your real name's on there, right? With Instagram, it's more handles. and the average income on LinkedIn is higher for those reasons.
I'm curious, you talked about putting in the hard work for LinkedIn to build your profile up. What have you found have been the most helpful tools in terms of like social media, in terms of getting the most exposure or likes or comments? Like, do you think is it engaged, just purely engaging with other people, consistent content? Like, what are your biggest tips?
It's funny with that question because I actually have learned quite a bit about the algorithm too.
Mhm.
And I noticed when I shifted my mindset about, okay, getting impressions and engagement and like forgetting the algorithm that I just put out, I wanted to put out videos. And people
Mhm.
said, oh, no, don't do videos. They don't do well. I'm like, I like being on camera. And that's where I can show my most authentic self and personality is through video.
Danielle tells me that all the time as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
She's
And-
like, you have such a good beard line. She's like, you belong on video.
Right.
I'm just
Uh-huh.
kidding. I'm
Yeah.
joking.
Yeah.
The people need to see it. But no, it's seriously, because think about it, through a picture you don't get that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I can help people the most through video.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can be me through video. And my videos always get, decent engagement.
Yeah.
And it's not even about that. Again, it's about like I'd rather have a couple people see my stuff and be like, wow, that was really helpful. And I can tell my kids that, or I can, somehow they can benefit from it. I'd say staying up in your DMs, staying up to date on that stuff, engaging in the DMs. Right now I'm on LinkedIn 3 days a week. I used to be on there more. Right now I just simply don't have time to do more
Mhm.
than 3 days. So again, some people may say, oh, you have to be on there every single day. And I get that. The more consistent you are, obviously, the better engagement you're going to get. But
And how many times do you post per week?
3.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
right,
you're,
too.
I didn't know if you were just like literally logged in those 3 days and you knocked it out, but
Yep.
it's 3 days posting. And are the posts very edited type videos, or are they more raw
It's
and captions?
Pretty raw. No
Pretty raw.
captions. It's literally, I'm not kidding. I set up my phone on a bunch of books.
Minute,
That's it.
2-minute videos,
Yeah.
10-minute, long form, short
I
form.
prefer raw videos. Like
Yeah.
I've kind of started the content creation journey myself, and like just for my lifestyle, I have a lot of different jobs. I don't have time or money, especially as like a new business
Mhm.
owner, to hire like, a super professional videographer. And there are benefits to
right.
that, but in my mind, because we've had videographers on here that say you're not going to blow up unless you have those high-end
Yeah.
videos, and I just disagree. I think
Disagree.
that it's like personal, and having those personal raw videos tells, a story. It's relatable to people. So
Yeah. Right. And it's not so curated all the time. Like,
Mhm.
listen, as a, 20-year-old college student when I started, I'm not paying $10,000 a month. For a
Right. And I think
videographer.
you can now with the app. Like I use InShot as like a
Yeah.
video editing app, and like that app is amazing. There are some really cool effects that you can put on your videos without paying anything, or maybe it's like a $10 subscription or
right.
something. So yeah, I
I
think
want to talk a little bit about the business side. Often I see a lot of creators falling flat on this end, right? Often I see one creator with 10,000 followers versus another. One makes $1 million a year, one makes $5,000 a year, right? LinkedIn doesn't pay their creators, and
Mhm.
other platforms typically don't pay that much. Like a lot of people think, "Ooh, that person has 1 million followers, they're killing it, they're making so much money." I'm like, no, it depends. It depends what
Yep.
brands they're working with.
Yeah.
So explain what happens. Give us kind of the step 2. You post videos, you get a bunch of messages, of course. Then what do you do with these messages? Then how do you create a business around it?
Sure. So in the past, I remember the first time I ever did freelancing was during COVID, and somebody wanted me to take over their social media. I literally didn't even have any content by then. I wasn't posting, but I was engaging with other people. So
Okay.
that's how I first started to get my name out there and just, hey, this is who I am, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, I'd like you to take over my social media. Like, I trust you. You've been around the block long enough. And I'm like, okay, sweet. And again, as a
Yeah.
young college student, it's like, sweet, some income coming in as a side hustle. That was great. And then it really depends. I mean, if I genuinely think I'm not a good fit to help you, I'm not going to. Like, that's the thing when it comes to money, is like, I'm not going to put a million things on my plate. It's more so the specific situation. If I think we would be a great fit working together, how is your personality working with mine? But the biggest thing is not being pushy. Man, when people are in my DMs and like, hey, this is what I do, like,
yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know you. Why would I want to work with
Yeah.
you? Like,
Yeah.
again, cultivate the relationship, especially if you're trying to sell something to
Okay,
somebody.
well, I'm going to give you the next hack. It's coming with the OWL platform for all the ones that you're maybe not going to even respond to. because you could tell it's an automated message.
Right.
They're soliciting you.
Yep.
If they live in the United States, of course, OWL's not overseas. It says US and Canada. Just have a formal message going back. All my intro calls are done on OWL. I charge $10 for 10 minutes. And if they go in and download it and use your referral code, you get $10 bonus anyway. So more money to collaborate. If they call you, they call you. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
But what you'll see is the ones that actually then go in and read that, some of them do really want to call you because it's someone automated. They've hired someone to do mass amount of messages, but there's some good CEOs out there that do that. And then sometimes they just bought a bad package, right?
Right.
Then all of a sudden they read your message like, oh, I actually do want to speak to Brielle. And hey, I can call her on OWL. That's pretty darn cool for $10. So what we found is take what a lot of people perceive as garbage, messages one man's treasure, one man's trash, another man's treasure, philosophy. And I've done very well with a lot of those messages because there's real humans on the other side often.
That's what's
so
nice.
It's a good trick.
That's what's missing nowadays too, is again, I don't want to speak to a robot. I want to speak to a human. So it's a great app.
And then how do you deal with all the messages? Because that's another problem we find. And OWL's a good tool for that. Is often a lot of people I've seen that are creators get thousands of messages, hundreds of messages, and they try to keep up. They can't. And then they're just kind of using their intuition to like, which ones do I want to respond to? And there could be a lot of lost business. And it's really its own skill set. No one talks about that. Everyone talks about the front end, like the videos, how many likes you get, how many comments, how do you engage on other people's content? No one ever talks about time management skills. I'm looking through the messages. And that's something like everyone always looks at me
where the
like,
opportunities are.
I'm always like, that's my secret. Like I'm nasty at that. Like I get people on meetings and I make shit happen behind the scenes. And no one sees that because, some things I just mentioned, but like, tell us your strategy and how you kind of keep up with them. Because once you have over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, all of a sudden it's like they come in on a regular basis as you post 3 times a week.
Usually the start to a message, I can kind of gauge, all right, are you even worth my time or not? To be honest, the ones that aren't, I don't have the time to sit. And again, if it's like clearly AI or it's like, hey, Brielle, this is what I sell right off the bat, probably not interested. But I do like, hey, great to be connected. Thanks for reaching out, or glad I could help, whatever. But honestly, and again, probably something kids in my generation don't really want to hear. It's like, I'm doing this stuff on the weekend. I remember I was talking to my parents, about a year ago, and they're like, gosh, I love that my kid is like on LinkedIn on a Saturday night. It's like, I'm not out partying a bunch and spending time with people who aren't going to, benefit me and me benefit them in my future. I'm just very selective and disciplined about what I do with my time.
So do you hang out on the other platforms then? Because when people then say, hey, can you take over my social media, right? You're a LinkedIn guru, but are you also guru on TikTok, Instagram, for example?
I know about them, but do I spend my time on there religiously? No, I haven't. It's really just LinkedIn, and I like that it can be one specific.
We do see that commonly with LinkedIn creators. Some of them just are like, they're all in.
Oh yeah, like Jonathan
Palmer
too. He's like never on Instagram, right? He doesn't even have any posts. I think I think it's better if you can be successful just on one platform. It's so much less overwhelming than trying to post on each thing. And then you have different audiences. Just having it all aggregated into one place is.
Or just make it big on one, and then eventually then you'll hire someone, and then you'll get big on the others regardless.
Yeah.
I know I saw Heather Monahan do that. She was all in on LinkedIn, right? And you met her at the LinkedIn local event. She's going to be on our show in a couple of weeks. We're going to have a special announcement when that comes around. But in general, what I noticed from her, because I've been following her for years, is she just kept going hard at LinkedIn.
Right.
And then she started a podcast, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of circled around then everything else, TikTok, Instagram, and she got quite large on those other platforms as well. But it always started from LinkedIn and just collaborating with people. She got a lot of DMs, and then she ended up on stages, and everything came, full circle. That's what I believe.
So if you guys haven't figured it out already, LinkedIn is the place to be. It's not oversaturated yet. You better get on there.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, like Microsoft, took over behind the scenes. And when you have a company like Microsoft taking over, a lot of people aren't following the data, but they went from like 700 or so million people to close to 1 billion users right now. That's an extra 200-300 million people, right? Those people are more active, and a lot of people are coming back to LinkedIn and starting to realize, wow, this is where the money is, because a lot of people have a lot more funds. Well, I am going to let Danielle over here search for some OWL experts to call. In the meantime, because I got to run out a little early, I have to run on a cruise that I'm taking. So Danielle's going to finish up today's episode. But what we've been doing is a bet. So I'm going to end my last minute with a bet with you. Okay. So we mentioned the DMs, and we just started doing this the last 3 episodes. And I'm going to place a wager that if you take 100 of those people that you ordinarily wouldn't message back, I'll provide you a script and just see how it works. I'm going to wager that 10 of them end up downloading. So 10% factor will come in and download OWL, and 2 of them will call you. And if 10 or more do it, let's say you have to do a post about it, tag OWL, and then tag the 2 people that called you and share your success story. Will you take that bet? And if it's under, what would you like? Because we have to have some risk here. You could use our studio for a special guest interview. Let's say we'll give it to you for an hour. We will put you on the featured category for an extra 20 days on OWL app. We will
Give you merch.
We will
We'll-
post a few extra times, on our social media about you, or add you to a newsletter an extra time.
Sure. Yeah.
So
no,
I don't know. You tell us what the bet is,
Yeah.
because of course it's going to take work to send 100 messages out.
Right. No, that might be something we'll have to talk about behind the scenes, or maybe when I'm graduated, then I can do that. I'm also going on a trip, have
Okay.
a little bit more time, so that's the good news. But yeah, maybe just we'll collaborate somehow, make a couple posts together, and it could kind of be the
Okay.
same bet, but vice versa.
Okay, so she's taking the under. I'm taking the over for everyone saying. So 10 people will download using your referral code. I'll provide you the message script. We have it in our community group. I always frequently post it to others, and I am always doing A/B and C testing on different strategies for my own account. So I'm excited to see from your side, because you're such a frequent poster, and I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the reason behind OWL, right? I collaborate with so many people through LinkedIn in the DMs. I've gotten hundreds of podcast guests through the DMs, and then all of a sudden I'm like, but there's still this broken piece where it's hard to get in conversations with people. And lots of times I know that, people would jump on a conversation. They really knew who we were. Right. And that's where OWL is just so natural and raw. So I know you're absolutely going to love it.
And that's what's nice too. If I'm like, hey, even, I went on this podcast, it was great. They're like, oh, well, I know you and trust you. Then, maybe they could do the same.
Absolutely. Well, Danielle, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Everyone listening,
Yeah.
I'll be back next Wednesday.
Perfect.
Danielle's going to do some OWL calls right now.
Woo, yeah. I'm just trying to get someone on the line here, see who we can call to get some advice. So I'm curious, while I'm calling people, if you can think of, like, just when you were talking about your content earlier and kind of giving us more of detailed example, like, what is a piece of content, I guess, that you can think of that you made that, like, did really well?
I say what's coming to mind right away, and what is so huge is how to have uncomfortable conversations, because nobody likes them. I mean, I don't like them. Every time I have to have one, it's like, is it fun? No. But I know on the other side of them is growth. And so, again, my generation aside, I think everyone really benefited from, even the 2-minute video that I put out there about it. It's like, oh, great. She has a couple, like, proven strategies to help me do this, or little tips, and it goes a long way.
And where do you get that information? Is it just, like, from your own brain of, like, or living experience, or do you, like, research these things or read books of, like, psychologists, or where do you get a lot of this information from?
Yeah. So most of my content, I'd say, is coming from my own experience. And then besides that, honestly, I love reading. I haven't been doing a whole lot of reading these past couple of years because I'm reading textbooks in school.
Yeah.
So that's like the last thing I want to do. But I do, like, YouTube. I obtain knowledge from my parents, my friends. Really, I feel like we get knowledge and information everywhere. So
Yeah.
but with uncomfortable conversations, that's definitely been from personal experience, which is cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Let's see. I'm going to try. Usually people answer, but sometimes they don't turn their notifications on, and that's what I've been trying to call some people, and they don't always know when they download the app that you have to make sure your notifications are on, no matter, what phone you're using,
Right.
because otherwise you won't see the calls you're getting.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like we got someone on the line. Debbie.
Hello, hi.
Hi, this is Danielle, and you are on the OWL Podcast.
Yes, I love being on the OWL podcast.
Yay!
Who doesn't want to be on the OWL podcast? I mean, come on.
Right? I know, it's the best. So well, first of all, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, I love working with fellow entrepreneurs, lots of podcasters, coaches, authors, small businesses, more or less in the SaaS type of entrepreneur world. And I work with them to create kind of their personal brand story, as well as automating their business systems. So, what that looks like is building them a storefront, building them lead magnets, digital products, and then working through automated systems to capture emails so they can do effective email campaigns that convert. And yeah, ultimately helping them grow sales so that they don't have to worry about their systems, so they can go out and do what they love to do, are passionate about, or feel called to do. So ultimately, yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. And I am here today with Brielle Wohlenhaus, and she's a social media marketing expert. She has a big following on LinkedIn just from her own raw videos. She does a lot on communication skills, and gives advice
Yeah,
about that, especially for the younger generation of today. So,
nice.
do you, seeing what you do you have any questions that you want to ask Brielle in terms of marketing, online marketing, LinkedIn communication?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a specific question about that, but you know, as digital marketing continues to be kind of that growth of, just say, the world in general, whether you're, coaching, digital products, podcasters, books, NFTs, as people build these services, the biggest, shall we say, area needed is social media, because that's how you drive traffic or awareness to your offer,
Mm-hmm.
whoever, whatever business it is. So for young people, I would think, especially, knowing how to create, craft, and then send out your content is so important, because it's more than just quote unquote posting. The post has to be meaningful, have a hook, a call to action, and everything that's needed. So I think young people need to know exactly how to communicate that message effectively.
Totally. Do you have any questions for Debbie? Not to be on the spot, but
Yeah. So, Debbie, it's great to meet you, first and foremost. My question
Nice to
to
meet you
you
too.
would be, what made you want to go into branding? My guess would be, as you were just talking about how crucial digital marketing and social media is, especially with we're evolving, in the world with AI and tech and all of those areas. But yeah, what was that deciding factor that made you want to start to provide some of these services?
It's so funny because it's really relatively new to me. Um, I have a background in consumer packaged goods, so I've represented probably 50 brands that are sitting in your house somewhere. So very physical products. I've called on all the national retailers, and so all of my experience is physical. And so I guess when I started looking into digital marketing, I've always had kind of this entrepreneurial spirit. So it felt to me like, after working in corporate America, I've moved over $1 billion retail dollars in consumer packaged goods. And I was left still feeling empty, unfulfilled, and exhausted, right? Like traveling all the time for corporate America. So I was ready to make a switch, and digital marketing allows me to actually kind of fulfill my personal calling and go with where the world is going today of, like I said, buying digital products, social media, etc. So my calling is to help other entrepreneurs literally create their automated systems so they can go do what their gifts and their callings is. So why I kind of went into that is, that's where I feel like I'm fulfilled and
Mm.
fulfills my purpose is to help others kind of be that strong number two behind some really big brands or big companies so that they can go off and kind of do what they're passionate about. But then their systems are automated in the background.
So actually, because we were talking about earlier, like DMs and, how does Brielle answer all of her incoming DMs and like engaging
Yeah.
and doing all that takes a lot of time. So do
Yes.
you have any recommendations for AI in terms of LinkedIn and
Yeah,
automation?
I do. That's kind of exactly. So I know, I don't know exactly, what your business structure is, but there are so many different pieces to automate your systems, whether it's, I don't know if you're using ManyChat yet, but
I don't
that's
use them
something that,
either. I'm curious, like, what is an affordable, like
I am
for
the
for
system.
someone that's just graduating college over here, and another
yeah,
artist over here, like, what's something that's affordable that as we grow our brands and start getting more DMs that like we can send these automated, personalized messages from us, but ones that are automated.
yeah,
What can we start using?
yeah. So ManyChat is something that is a good starting point. Now it is a paid subscription, or
Mhm.
depending on what you want to do, but you can automate it. So for instance, if you're saying something like whatever your product is, and then you say, write start in the comments or whatever that word is. So if someone replies start or puts start in your messages or something, it can take them on that automated system, and it can be customizable to pretty much anybody to respond to your messages. Because to your point, when you start getting hundreds, you can't answer all of
Yeah.
them
It's not
in
sustainable.
the best way. Um, so it's, and using AI, there's lots of systems. I also use AI a lot because email marketing, no one is really tapping into that as much as they can, because believe it or not, email marketing converts at a 10 times higher rate than social media posts.
That
So
makes
you can
sense.
use chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be, well, because what you're doing is you're nurturing your customer
Your
and your potential
actual
lead.
I always say that like the best pieces of information you can get are your fans like information. That's the most valuable, because if Instagram gets shut down tomorrow or LinkedIn,
Yeah.
you're screwed. But if you have the email addresses and phone numbers of the people that follow you, then you can, you're not stuck behind the platform essentially.
yeah.
So like I've had
So
instances where Facebook shut me down,
Right.
and then I'm like, now what? So can still make money that way.
Mhm.
so a tidbit of information. Yeah, a huge tidbit of information is your email list is actually an asset class.
Mhm.
And when you follow some of the customers' buyout information, even getting into Elon Musk, all the people, when they buy other companies, they are literally buying the companies for the email list.
Mm-hmm.
So that asset class is the most valuable asset in today's digital world that you can have. And
So
so many people
Mhm.
are not taking advantage of that asset class.
would you say it's more valuable like email marketing rather than text marketing? Because I know that I've kind of been debating about like which one is better, because I personally don't. I have so many emails that when I get a text, I'm more likely to respond to that. Do you think one is better than the other?
Um, I don't like to comment. I know some people sees huge success. I don't have any statistics yet to
Yeah.
say which one is more effective, but I
Mhm.
know they both are way more effective than
Then the
social
algorithm.
media
Yeah.
posts.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we're running out of time, but thank you so much, Debbie. And we'll talk to you
No
soon.
problem.
Bye. So, I mean, you can obviously add time
Right.
to the call. And then at the end, which is one of the coolest parts, is you can rate your call, you can write comments, give her 5 stars all around. But if for some reason you didn't have a great call or you didn't get the
Yeah.
information you needed, you know, or someone was being inappropriate, you can report
Right.
them. So, and then, you know, normally like if we weren't on the podcast, I probably would have just added more time and gotten more information. So that's basically how it works.
I love it. It's like a couple of your favorite apps built into one.
Yeah. And I mean,
Super
speaking of like a college student that's about to graduate, it really is the perfect place to network
Mhm.
for jobs. I
Yeah.
think it's just the most personal. Like LinkedIn is a great resource, but something like this where you could actually call the CEO of one of
Yeah.
your favorite companies for a couple dollars and they
Yeah.
could see that, you know, you have the drive and you care enough
Mhm.
to make that effort, especially someone in the younger generation. You know, I think that's so powerful. So
Agree.
yeah, but we loved having you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Owl podcast. And we'll definitely be in touch. We'll have to see about that bet situation,
Right.
what's going to happen there. But can you just share with our audience where the best place is that they can find you? LinkedIn, which it's pretty obvious, but can you just maybe spell your last name for them? So it's Brielle is the first name, and then
Brielle, and last name would be WOHLENHAUS. I know it's a keeper. So
yes,
that'd be the
awesome.
best place, and thank you so much for having me. It's been
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you. All right, we'll see you all next week.